Hello everyone, I am Lilli Peura and I'm happy to be part of this There's History in All Men's Lives symposium in Ljubljana. I'm a research assistant and a student at the Aalto University in Finland, working in the Semantic Computing Research Group. Today I present to you a storytelling suite project that I've been working on this summer. It is a prosopographical case demo, telling the story of a Finnish artist community living in the Lake Tuusula area. In this presentation, I will start by outlining background and objectives of the project. Then I will present the data and how it has been collected and enriched. Following that, I'll go through the steps in the story creation process and finally present the results and discussion of this case study. The InTaVia storytelling suite has been previously used for creating visual narratives focusing on individual biographies, such as German painter Albrecht Dürer. So when planning on making the new story, it was therefore decided to focus this time on a group and create a so-called prosopographical story that would combine multiple actors. This also provided a chance to discover possibilities and limitations in the InTaVia data. Desired outcome was a visualized demonstration that the end users would find engaging. This prosopographical approach hasn't been used previously in InTaVia storytelling projects, so the process was quite exploratory. As a case study, it focused on a particular group, so it naturally has its limitations as its findings are context dependent. The artist community of Lake Tuusula was selected as the subject of the new narrative case. It consisted of author Juhani Aho, painter Eeri Järnefelt, painter Pekka Halonen, author J.H. Erkko, and composer Jean Sibelius and their spouses. They were notable artists who settled in the rural landscape around the Lake Tuusula in the early 1900s, and through their work, they developed and reinforced Finnish culture and self-esteem during politically difficult times. Their story was built on the data provided by the InTaVia knowledge graph, which consists of semantically linked cultural heritage data in RDF format. It was queried and exported by using Sparkle endpoint called Jasgui. Missing information was then added by creating manually new cultural heritage objects and merging those with the existing data. In addition, the story was enriched with additional media elements, such as pictures and music. And it started the data mining by querying people that were related to Tuusula or Järvenpää, that is the name of a municipality nearby. But it turned out that in the knowledge graph, there were only 2 of the community's artists having any connections to the area. And that's why I chose a bit more pragmatic approach and searched the persons by filtering the results by their names. And I found all of the artists in the data. As I continued exploring, it turned out that the data actually included a lot of the artists' life events, as you can see here, but information about the place of residence in Tuusula was missing. However, I decided to ignore that for a moment and proceeded to the technical interpretation of the story. With the help of Jakob Kusnik and Katarina Dobler, I created a collection in the storytelling suite tool that contained all of the artists. And the storytelling suite toolkit enabled to create visual biography timelines and depict the artist's life events on a map. Here's an example of Eeri Järnefelt's page. The timeline on the left-hand side is automatically generated from the InTaVia data. And to make it a bit more lively, I have added a text box which contains a short biography and a picture of his self-portrait below it. However, the initial problem regarding the missing connection to Lake Tuusula still remained. It wouldn't have made sense to create a prosopographical story without this connecting link between the people. And the spatial information was also essential to the structure of the story. As the community around the lake was formed gradually, it seemed most logical to build the story in chronological order and visualize the migration process with the storytelling suite tools. So I googled the coordinates of each residence, and Jakob Kusnik manually created cultural heritage objects for them and linked them to the people in the data. And so now we were able to create this nice map view with the storytelling suite. So each dot on the map represents an artist's home, And in the final story, they, as well the residents, are presented in chronological order. So for example, the first destination is the home of Juhani Aho and his wife, painter Venni Brufeld. The residence and the everyday life in there is first described shortly, followed by the interaction of the residents. In addition, I have added pictures of some of the artist's main works. Here you can see 3 of Venni Brufeld's paintings, which are also bolded in her timeline. The goal is to make the knowledge graph-based content a bit more engaging. But as you can see, most of the event labels are in Finnish, which doesn't provide much information for non-Finnish speakers. And this leads to the discussion part. Firstly, the case demo showed that incomplete or missing information creates a fairly poor starting point for story creation. If the majority of the content has to be added or, for example, translated first manually, the outcome doesn't differ much from a basic slideshow presentation. And the storytelling suite itself has its limitation as well, as the slide templates are a bit hard to adjust. Secondly, the characteristics of prosopography can make story creation a bit tricky. It all starts with fundamental questions such as how does one define a group, what does make a group worth a story to tell, or what do the people in the group have in common. The connecting link might be geographical, as in this example, or something more abstract, such as a shared ideology. So there is really no one-size-fits-all solution for story creation and visualization. Also, problems caused by data limitations tend to accumulate when groups are involved. If one person is lacking some information, it can be maybe either bypassed or fixed manually. But if all entities in a set of people are missing the information that connects them as a whole, it really can't be ignored. Otherwise, the outcome would be just the same as a sequence of separate biographies, and that would also make the story quite lengthy. To address both of these previously mentioned aspects, I propose a network-based approach to story creation. So at least theoretically, interesting groups and collectivity could be studied by conducting social network analysis in the InTaVia data. In addition, this kind of visualizations could be a nice way to illustrate relationships within the group. For example, in the Lake Tuusula community, Aino Sibelius was the wife of Jean Sibelius, but also the sister of Eero Järnefelt and a former crush of Juhani Aho. This kind of network visualization is supported by storytelling suite as well. But once again, we run into data constraints here. Only 2 of the relations that are illustrated here are available in the knowledge graph. So while the storytelling suite offers a nice set of tools for story creation, it cannot be used as a standalone solution, at least for this group of artists, as manual work is needed in order to make the data and the story complete. And here you can find a QR code to the final story if you are interested to see it. Otherwise, I thank you for your attention.